Why are so many people overwhelmed with clutter? Disorganization is causing shame, suffering, friendships, time, money. People just like you wondering where and how to create an organized lifestyle. This podcast offers expert tips and solutions for your clutter obstacles. My name is Rachel Seavey, and this is the Organized Podcast.
Hey, collectors! Welcome back to the Organized Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Seavey, and today is kind of a follow-up on the last episode. I got lots of questions, especially about bins and what to do if you have bins and you haven't started. So I might just do a whole episode on bins one day, and maybe incorporate the many Pinterest boards and pins that I have for that sort of a thing. But today I wanted to get a little bit more into just 5 things to know before you even start. And this is aside from the bins. So that's just a bonus one. Don't get bins before you start. Okay, that was my last episode. I guess it was a point of interest to you, and that's why I'm going into this. I wanted you to know but 5 more things to know before you start decluttering so that you feel that you're in control of the situation. I mean, it seems really simple on the surface, but as you know, it gets overwhelming really fast. So, whether you're starting at a messy garage or your whole house needs a triage, or just a junk drawer that you're scared to open, jot down these notes. Make sure that you have, something to write with because these are tips. Before you pull everything out and create an even bigger mess, it's really good to have these 5 key things to know before you start, because these are the things that I was thinking about that I encounter on a daily basis on what holds people back from getting started. So let me start. Number one, things always take longer than you think. I was just a couple of days talking about this with a client of mine, and she thought her paperwork was going to be a breeze. And it's like, she expressed to me that it took a lot longer than she thought. And I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't covered that in my podcast in a while. Will it be discouraging, or I don't know, just a good fact to know? So I'm going to just lead with it. Things usually take longer, at least twice as long as you think, because you haven't really done them before. And maybe you're older since you've done it, or maybe you're a little bit more, less able since you did a power session cleaning. And maybe now in your current life, things will take a little bit longer than you actually expect they will in the beginning. So that's something that I do in my coaching. I have people write down all of their chores, and then I have them write down in the next column, how long do they think it'll take? And then the third column is, how long did it actually take? So that's just something to really just know. I don't want it to discourage you at all, but sometimes things take longer than you imagine. So definitely just plan for more time. Step number 2, understand your trash and your recycling services. This is a worldwide podcast. I know all sorts of countries and states process their trash and recycling different. It's important that you know what your county, what your city, what your township, wherever you are, what the trash and recycling rules are. Because a lot of the times I start with people and they have no idea. Not only do they not know, anything about bulk pickups, I'll get into all of this, but they don't know what can be thrown out and what is recycling, what needs to be disposed of in a special way. And so it's really important that you take control of your situation by knowing these things in advance. That way you're not piecemealing it item by item, like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So, first, you want to check out just your local trash and recycling rules. They're going to be posted, I'm sure, on their website. Everybody is different. And I'm in the Bay Area, so ours is probably way more complicated than yours is. So I just go ahead, take some time. It'll probably take you 5 minutes at the most to look at your local waste management companies, rules and specifications on what can go in the trash bin, what can go in the recycling bin, what can go in the green bin, the green waste, the trees, and sometimes food is allowed. So you really want to know, how you get those into the green bin. Some people don't know. You don't want to put plastic bags. You want to put compostable bags. So take some time because I don't want to reinvent the wheel. And there are so many different rules and regulations for every place, but definitely take the time to look at your local trash and recycling rules. Here in California, with enough notice, you can schedule for free what they call a bulky pickup. And every city and county, even here, is different. But that's where, once a year or twice a year, you're allowed, maybe an 8 foot by 10 foot, don't quote me on this, 8 foot by 10 foot spot, like in front of your house, where you can pile up garbage and have them take it away for free. So that's a really good resource to know. It's good to know where your batteries go. It's good to know where your light bulbs go. It's good to know where your hazardous waste goes and what's considered hazardous. E-waste is another thing. Different states and cities process e-waste differently. Some things you might think are e-waste are actually just garbage. So please just take time and look on your personal local trash and recycling outfit district rules, and you'll feel a little bit more power the more in control you are of where your things are going. That being said, tip number 3 is also scope out your donation options. There are great organizations out there that would love to use your gently used items, but not all of them take everything. Some take furniture, some don't take furniture, some only want in-season clothing. So just take a few minutes, again, 5-10 minutes, do a Google search, local donation centers, and then look at their website at what they do and don't take. Because I get stuck a lot of the time with people saying, oh, by the way, I want to donate this, couch from 1970. And it's hard for me to say, like, oh, I'm sorry, they don't accept couches. They're either too big, too heavy, too old, whatever. So it's easier to have that knowledge in your control. Like, okay, nobody accepts, couches over 6 feet, or somebody isn't accepting this. And maybe you can go on your Nextdoor app or something, or your Facebook marketplace, and give things away for free. Once you know what the donation centers won't take, you can decide what you want to do with the stuff that they don't take. Whether you throw it out in the garbage, whether you try and rehome it for free, that's probably a whole nother episode. But you want to know your options before you even start. Because if you're trying to do all this in the middle of the process, it's really overwhelming. And I know this because most of my clients don't know any of this information. I'm telling it to them live as we're working, side by side, like, oh, this is, this goes here, this goes there. Animal shelter loves used towels, things like that, but they don't take the crocheted blankets, so there's the more information that the more comfortable it's going to be for you to let go of your stuff. I see it every day. Once people understand the process, and sometimes it sucks. Sometimes you have to throw something out and it feels like shit. Sometimes you don't find a home for it even on free cycle. Sometimes you put it out on the curb with free signs and it just gets rained on. I mean, we really do try our best to be ecologically responsible, but there is a limit there, guys. And that's definitely going to be a podcast that I hopefully will be doing with Varian next month. Stay tuned for that. So, tip number 4 is have a real plan, not just a vibe. Decluttering without a plan is like trying to cook without a recipe, or having a recipe with no ingredient list, or getting into Uber and they ask you where are you going and you don't know where you're going. You don't know where you're starting. You don't know where you're finishing. It's like, it's really hard. It just won't work. So you've got to have a plan, not just a vibe. How do you create a plan? It could be a loose plan, but just get a plan down. Take some time, write it down, write down your plan. Ask yourself, what is your goal? Are you clearing a space? Are you clearing the whole house? Why? What is the purpose? Why are you trying to achieve this goal? Even if it's in your head and it makes sense to you, getting it on paper really helps create a plan of action and makes things a little less chaotic, I would like to say. So once you kind of have a goal and it's whether clearing a space, let's just say it's one space, you're going to break it down into steps, which room, which corner of the table, what order. You want to be prepared. Like I said in my other tips before, you want to have your trash bag, your recycling bag, your donation bag, and maybe like a box for keep stuff. We've gone over sorting in other episodes, but you want to have all that set up. That's called having a plan. You have your Sharpie, you have your tape, you have your water. You're serious. You're getting to work. It's not just a vibe. You're not just like, hashtag organization. You're actually doing it. So breaking it into steps, how you'll sort the trash. Will you have a maybe pile? Think of all this stuff beforehand. Don't sit there with the thing in your and the item in your hand and keep asking yourself. Maybe have all this written down and post it up and say, "Oh, I allowed myself a maybe pile, so that goes there." Or, "Oh, I am not allowed a maybe pile because my maybe piles always turn into, chaos." Whatever your situation is for you, just try and write out a plan. It's really helpful. Not only which room, but what order, and how thoroughly, what kind of tasks. Just make each thing detailed so you have a written plan. You don't have to follow it. You're not going to, die on that hill of that plan that's taped to your wall, but at least you have like a loose blueprint of where you want to go. At least you get in that Uber and you're like, I want to go to the Bay Area. Okay. At least you have kind of a place that you want to go and they can kind of drop you off in a location. Maybe you can get it more specific. You say, I want to be dropped off in Berkeley. And as you're working on your plan, it's always revisable. It's not set in stone, you know? So eventually your plan using the Uber will be arriving at the destination that you want, at that clutter-free home, at that exact address that you picked out, that you created. That's your destiny, right? So you definitely want to treat these things like it's serious. You don't want to just pin a bunch of pins on Pinterest or buy a bunch of bins at the container store and think you're organizing. You really want to create a plan. And the next step, and it's something that I always tell people, step number 5 is you want to schedule this like it's an appointment. I know that sounds ridiculous. It's just washing your dishes, you might say, or, oh, why do I need to schedule laundry? It's because you're overscheduled. I'm overscheduled. I'm just really good at managing my time. But unfortunately, I work with the most brilliant, the most caring, the most loving, the most wonderful individuals that aren't that great at scheduling time. And so that might be you. And I just naturally fit things in. Like, here it is. It's Memorial Day weekend. I'm recording this kind of on the fly. I'm throwing myself under the bus for that one. But I've already done my chores. I did my chores yesterday. I knew I was going to do my chores this weekend. I didn't need to set a reminder. But for you, it's a new process. It's a new skill. So treat this like it's an appointment. You're not lazy, okay? You're just booked solid. Or maybe you've got a lot of doctor's appointments. I work with a lot of aging folks and they've got so many doctor's appointments. Oh my gosh. Like, and if you're like 70 or older, you know what I'm talking about. So look at your calendar, whether it's paper, whether it's electronic. Please tell me you have a calendar. If you don't, that's a must have. But you want to just schedule it like it's an appointment. And like I said, it's not set in stone. Even write it in pencil. People don't like to erase things on their calendar. I get it. But it's just schedule it. And then decluttering is going to become something that you naturally do, and you're not going to have to keep it on your calendar forever. But go ahead and schedule in some times. Treat it like it's a real commitment, like a 2-hour window on a Saturday morning or 3 nights this week after dinner. And Also, this is tip 5.5. Make sure you schedule time for the aftermath because sometimes we like to pull everything out and go through it. So definitely schedule at least 15 minutes or half an hour so that you can put things back or at least keep them, livable, not trippable until the next time you're decluttering. Okay. So that's my tip. That part is just, as important as scheduling. You want to make sure that you have time to put things away. So make sure you write that down. And, decluttering, it's less about getting rid of stuff and it's more about creating space. Okay. It's less about getting rid of stuff and it's more about creating space in your home, creating space in your mind. And if you go in prepared, it becomes just way more manageable. And I hate to say it, it can be enjoyable. Turn on some tunes, put on a podcast. And hey, collectors, if this helped, feel free to send this to a friend. Make sure you're subscribed. Always click like. And I love reading your comments below. Next week, I'm going to be delving into how to let things go, even if you're emotionally attached. And even when your brain says, what if I need it someday? So you don't want to miss that. Until next time, collectors. And remember, happiness is a place between too little and too much.
Thank you for listening to the Hoardganize podcast. Please make sure you're subscribed and join our Hoardganize podcast Facebook page and get additional tips and challenges.